writing in the poem Touch. This is a protest poem where the speaker was arrested and put into jail for political activism. He is speaking of what prison is taken away from him during his time there. The speaker explains the difference between the touch he receives in prison and the touch that he craves. So there's two different types of touch here, and throughout the poem you're going to see a comparison between them. So you really need to know how to describe each touch because they are very, very different. So in prison he receives the violent, harsh touch, whether this be from guards or fellow inmates. But the touch that he writes about craving and that he really, really wants is a loving, gentle human touch that he can only really experience outside of prison. So it's inaccessible to all the inmates, and that is why he misses it so much. If we read the poem from the start, it says, "When I get out, I'm going to ask someone to touch me, very gently, please, and slowly. I want to learn again how life feels." These last three lines tells us that he associates touch with life, because he says he wants to be touched again in order to know how life feels, as though experiencing human touch would make him feel alive again. Obviously, this is not the human touch that he receives in prison, because in prison it is very harsh and violent and sexual, and he's been treated as more of an object than a person, which is probably why he doesn't feel alive when he gets touched like that, because he's not even being treated as a human being. The touch that he is craving and that he wants in order to feel alive again is the loving, gentle touch. I think that this may also be a protective mechanism, because in prison the touch that he receives is probably in the form of sexual harassment and physical violence and beatings from guards and inmates. Therefore, he may need to make himself numb to it, so that he almost feels dead in order to just get through life every single day. The fact that he doesn't know how life feels anymore emphasizes how abusive this touch was. Then if we carry on reading, he talks about how he has not been touched for 7 years, which is a contradiction to what he says throughout the poem, because he speaks of being touched and then he speaks of not being touched. So which one is it? Because it sounds like he's contradicting himself. But this is basically emphasizing how different he sees these two types of touch, and the fact that he doesn't even see them as remotely the same thing. So when he says he hasn't been touched for 7 years, he means that he has not been touched gently and lovingly since he arrived in prison, which we can deduce was 7 years ago. If we read the end of the second stanza, it says, "I've learned to know the meaning of untouchable." Now this is a reference to the Untouchables, where the prisoner learned to feel like a person who is unclean, unwanted, and unloved, such as the Indian caste, who is seen as the lowest social class there could be. Then the speaker goes on to describe the two types of touch. So the prison touch is described as indifferent, mad, and dehumanizing. That's how we could see the speaker feels about the types of touch that he receives in prison. And this is shown by various examples, such as when he mentions fierce, mad fists, beating, and he uses the word paws to describe hands. So this places emphasis on the animal-like, rough nature of the touch of the prisoners and the inmates, or whoever is touching him. Then obviously he describes human touch, and the words that he uses to describe human touch in the poem are gently and slowly. So pay attention to those examples and exactly how he distinguishes the two and how he describes them. Then we have 7 years, which is repeated. So this emphasizes the repetitive nature of prison, how routines don't change at all, and it highlights the long, strenuous time period that he has been in prison. And with the routine, it's almost a routine. Obviously in prison there is a routine that all the inmates follow every single day. Not only is it just waking up, eating, sleeping, he probably also means that there's routine beating and sexual harassment in there as well. So that just makes the days even longer, because it's not just getting through the day, he also has to deal with tons of harassment and violence throughout the day. And also places emphasis on the repetitive violence that he experiences daily. That is very important. Then not only does the speaker differentiate between the gentle touch that he is craving outside of prison and the touch that he receives in prison, He's also distinguishing between the different types of touch that he is receiving in prison. So, for example, the use of the word mad fists, that emphasizes the physical violence that he experiences and how he gets beat up, etc. Then when it says legs apart and all privacy removed, or something like that, that emphasizes the sexual violence, sexual harassment that he receives in prison. Then over here, it's very evident that the speaker is asking to be touched, but he says specifically, I don't want fists and paws. He wants to be touched and he wants to feel alive again. So here, what does this imply? You just need to know the difference between the types of touch and the words that he uses to describe them, and to be able to describe the touch that he is craving, not the one that he is currently receiving. There's many other things going on in this stanza. The use and the repetition of the word again can emphasize the repetitive nature of the violence that he experiences, but also how badly he wants to be touched gently. Then he says, I want to say, when I get out, here I am, please touch me. And he's begging for touch here, which just shows how desperate he is for gentle touch. There's also enjambment in this poem, and that is very, very important. So this is the continuation of a sentence or a thought onto two or more lines. These long continuous lines emphasize the length of time that he has been in prison and how long his days feel, obviously due to the violence and the harassment that he is getting daily. So even though his sentence may not be as long as somebody else's, it feels terribly long because it's so excruciating with everything that he has to experience in a day. Not only does his prison sentence feel extremely long, but his day, just getting through the day, feels extremely long too. It also adds a sense of desperation for human touch as he continuously talks of it without pausing. So this can be seen as his mind, like he can't literally think about anything else 24/7. All he's thinking about is getting out of that prison and getting gentle, loving human touch again. Because when you read the poem, since there's no punctuation, you can't really stop anywhere. It's just go, 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 go. That's how his mind is. He can't think about anything else. And there's relief at the end of the poem when the speaker finally pauses. This allows the speaker to take a break from this constant narrative in his mind and need for human touch, which can represent the end of his long prison sentence, because he can finally go out into the world now and experience that human touch. Then for the structure of this poem, it is free verse, which means that there is no rhyme scheme present. There are very short and sporadic lines, and this dramatizes the continual disruption of a full life by the acts of cruelty that he is receiving in prison. There's also very simple language, which emphasizes the simple message in the poem that human touch differs in different contexts, and also that he's only craving something that is very, very simple. Thank you guys for listening and watching this video. I really hope that it helped. Please will you like and subscribe to my channel, it really helps me. And comment any additional analysis that I may have forgotten or practice questions in the comments. I want this to be a resource for you guys so that before your exams you can come watch the video and quickly revise all of the analysis, but also check the comments for anything that I've forgotten and to be able to practice questions that your teachers may have given you in class.